Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Hammer Podcast. Today is February 11th, 2023, and I'm speaking with Sabrina. Sabrina went to 5 troubled teen homes, and she's going to tell her story right now. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bar. That way you are notified when a video is on. Okay? So, Sabrina, the floor is yours. Go ahead and start. Why were you sent to those homes?
So I actually am I'm adopted,
Okay.
and my adoptive mother was severely abusive. And I have 3 adoptive siblings, 2 older brothers and an older sister, and we were all severely abused. So my sister Beverly was the first one who got sent to the troubled teen industry right around the time when our adoptive mother got really sick and was diagnosed with cancer. She had my sister Beverly, when she was 15, go live with our older cousin Sherrod, and we had to call our cousin Sherrod Aunt Sherrod because she was so much older than us. So she lived with Aunt Sherrod, and then Aunt Sherrod sent her away to Charity Haven in Milton, Florida. And then she got sent off to Charity Haven's sister home, Victory Acres, and that was in Texas. And then it closed down and relocated to Marion, North Carolina. Well, I had got sent away to go live with a family friend named Connie, and Connie's adoptive son was molesting me. And so they put me in those programs to hide the abuse, and pretty much because I was an annoying 11-year-old. I was not a troubled teen at all. I was 11.
Okay.
So this was right around the time when my sister went to the one in Texas. They put me in the sister facility, Charity Haven in Milton, Florida. And I was under the impression, because my aunt sat me down and said, you're going to go to a boarding school. You're going to go be with your sister. And I'm like thinking, oh, cool, boarding school. Like, I'm thinking like a regular boarding school for girls. So it was nothing like that. I wasn't even with my sister. She was they kept us separated. They would take us to different churches and stuff and make us go sing and give our testimonies. And when we would go to revivals, sometimes the sister facility would come too. So then when my sister was around, I wasn't even allowed to look at her or anything or talk to her.
Right.
So that's why my family, they pretty much just pawned us off. They didn't want to take care of us. My adopted mother, she died when I was 13. So I did come back home for a little bit, and then I got sent right back to the programs. So the first program I was sent to,
you were sent back to Charity Haven after that?
I was actually sent to Bethel. I actually got kicked out of Charity Haven. I was only there 3 months. So.
I wanted to ask you something real quick. You said that you had to give your testimony.
Yes.
When you gave your testimony, did they coach you?
Yes, they did coach us. So like mine had to be very much watered down, because I didn't have I was on drugs and sitting and living I didn't have none of that, because I was 11 years old. So it was, and they didn't want me to talk about the abuse. And it was just like, well, I didn't come from a very good family, and they didn't really care too much about me. So my aunt sent me here so I could be loved, but I wasn't loved in those programs. I was beaten, and abused and brainwashed.
Let me guess. You were defeated. You were defeated. That's what they always. I knew this stuff was coached, because back in the day, that was Roloff's thing when the Rebekah girls, they give their testimony. First thing, I'm so and so. I was defeated. That's what they always said. I was defeated, and I was in sin and everything the world had to offer. I knew it was coached. Yeah. It had to have been.
Very much.
Now, Charity Haven. You said you were there 3 months.
3 months.
Anything happen?
Yes, I actually, for about 2.5 months, I was locked in what's called the prayer room. And it's a little room, and it had carpet on the walls and on the floors. And there's like a small bench, almost like a church pew, but with no back attached to the wall. And you just do everything there. You would eat your meals in there, which the meal at the time, if you're in the prayer room, was a peanut butter and butter sandwich, like margarine, and then a cup of water. That was your meal: breakfast, lunch, dinner. That's all you got. And so that's what I ate for like 2.5 months straight. And and they would let me out sometimes for showers. Sometimes I wouldn't get showers. I wasn't allowed to wash my hair with shampoo, conditioner, use a brush. I had like a really tiny, flimsy, like comb, like you would cut someone's hair with,
Yeah.
and then a rubber band, not a hair tie, but a rubber band. And you can see I have very curly hair. So
Yeah.
by the time like my hair was matted so bad that two girls actually snuck me out, washed my hair and conditioned it. Yeah, because it was so bad matted.
They gave you the feminine hygiene products and all that stuff, right?
No, you were limited. I got like two a day, two pads a day. Yeah. So, um, you can only shower with a bar of Dial soap, and that was including your hair too. So I was using gold Dial bar soap on my hair.
Yeah.
So it was extremely matted.
That dries it. That dries your
Yeah.
hair out big time.
And they would play the preaching tapes and preaching sermons, like Lester Roloff preaching tapes, the Honeybee Quartet through to try to like brainwash. But you know, I was 11 and ADHD, and I had a very imaginative mind, so I would just think about other things or play secular music in my head and sing Tupac lyrics. Like I'm an introvert, so I kind of liked the isolation room because I didn't have to do the singing, I didn't have to do the cleaning. I took several naps. Like they couldn't break me.
You were there with your own thoughts, and that was just
I was like, okay, like, you know. Well, I did get really super depressed, and I tried to hang myself. In that room, they had a closet that had a bar, but I didn't know that it was one of those rods that just stuck to the wall.
Oh.
So I took my shirt off. I'm sorry.
So you went down and boom, right on the floor.
Down, and they heard the clunk clunk, and so they ran in there and saw it tied, you know. And so then they, instead of being like, "Oh my God, why would you try to kill yourself? Like, what's going on?" It was like, "You demon!" And they tried to exorcise my demons. Yeah, they beat me. You know, I'm clearly in crisis. 11-year-old thing to die.
Did one of them have a Bible? And he's like,
yes,
like this?
Norma walked in. We had to call her Mama Hen.
Mama Hen?
Mama Hen, and we had to call her husband Papa Hen. His name was Dave Walkden. He never brushed his teeth. He always smelled like peanut butter, and he would play with our hair. And so it was like, he was this old man. You're like, why would you?
Right.
But he actually ran the program that was in Texas. But because he was old as shit, he had hired. Sorry, I tell my story in a funny way.
That's
because
fine.
People can only take so much dark. You know?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so Papa Hen was old as shit. So he hired Bill McNamara and Jen McNamara. And they turned the Rebekah Home into New Beginnings Girls Academy.
Now, was Rebekah already moved to Florida?
Yeah. So
okay.
I went right during that transition. So let me go back and rewind. So I went to Charity Haven, was there 3 months, went to the prayer room, tried out myself. They exercised my demons. So one day they take me out of the prayer room because you're on red shirt punishment, and all you could do is wear a red shirt, similar to the Rebekah Home. Like it's literally a Lester Roloff program rebranded. It's just a spinoff, you know. So
is this New Beginnings?
No, this is still Charity Haven. We're talking about
Charity Haven. Okay.
So Charity Haven. So they took me and put me in a van, and they took my shoes off and put shackles on my feet. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, where are we going? Like, I'm not going to run. I'm 11, you know? And so we drive for forever. And we go down this dirt clay road, and I see these barracks and these boys marching in military, like camo pants and white t-shirts. There's a drill sergeant yelling. There's these boys. They had like an obstacle course with the pond, and they were jumping in it and screaming at him. I'm like, oh, they're going to try to scare me. Okay. All right, you know, like I see what's going on here. But, you know, little did they know, like I had a really horrible, abusive mom who tried to kill me a couple times. So, like, I'm already tough. So I'm like, my mom literally cracked my head open on right here on the left side with a rock hammer. Mm-hmm. And she
a rock hammer,
and lied to the police and my adopted dad and said I was riding my bike with no helmet on. But that's not what happened. So I get out this van, and Herman Fountain is the owner, and Drill Sergeant Knott are yelling in my face, and they're like, "Oh, I see you got shackles on your feet. You must be tough." And I'm like, "Well, I'm like 4'11" and I'm like 82 pounds. Not really. I'm
Yeah.
just like being who I am, a smart ass, sarcastic person, giving it to him back. So they drag me inside his house. They're screaming in my face, yelling, making me do push-ups, jumping jacks. And I think they were expecting me to like cry, but I didn't, because I was like, okay, I can do this all day. Let's go. Like, you know what I mean? And so by the end of it, and I'm like smiling the whole entire time because I know it's going to get on their nerves, and I'm not doing anything to get in trouble. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's a game. Um, so by the end of it, they were like, good job, because they like to break you down and then build you up.
Yeah.
And so I go, at this time, I'm one of the first girls because Bethel Academy was actually opened in 1978 by Herman Fountain in Lucedale, Mississippi, as Bethel Children's Home. It was
Yes.
raided in 1988 and officials shut it down. It reopened up again in 1990. And he reopened it up as Bethel Boys Academy. And in
Ah.
1998, he reopened Bethel Girls Academy. And
Hmm.
I was one of the first girls to arrive. And so we lived in a trailer on the boys' property behind the church and the school while the boys rebuilt our new dorm in Petal, Mississippi, which is a town outside Hattiesburg, Mississippi. So I was at Bethel for about a year. And while I was there, it wasn't as bad. I mean, there was a bunch of traumatic shit that happened, but it didn't get bad till the second time. But I witnessed a lot of things, like a lot of the boys, we would walk past their barracks, and then you could see it was fogged up because they would do what's called sweat parties. And you could see the boys writing help in the window. And they would make them strip down butt naked, turn on the heat, turn on the hot showers, let it steam up, and make them exercise for hours. And I don't mean like 2-3 hours. I mean 18 hours straight. And there were times us girls were
Holy shit.
exercising until 2 o'clock in the morning. Like we were passing out, puking. It was a lot of physical and mental abuse. They would call us girls whores. I got racial slurs. They made me pick cotton. Pick cotton. Yeah, for like no reason, not even punishment, just for the embarrassment and the humiliation because they could. Me and
Yeah.
several other black girls. And when I said this is the most racist shit I've ever experienced, they said, well, it should come natural to you. Do you know what we do to your kind down here? And I was like, well, I'm gonna be the fastest motherfucking cotton picker. You ain't hanging my ass. Like, like,
Yeah.
but now I think about it, I was like, that was so humiliating. Like, it angers me. Like, that's how sick but this is supposed to be a Christian organization that's supposed to help us. But then you're sitting there like, they had the work crews. They called them the NRIGGER crews, and it was
Yeah.
a black man saying it. And I
That
was like
was
so confused by that.
that was Roloff though. That was Roloff saying that
Yeah.
the IFBs are intently racist.
Oh,
He's
most
he used to
definitely.
call he used to call the Hispanics lubricanos.
Jack Patterson, I was in one of his programs. He called us Hamites because he says that was the biblical term, Hamites. Told me I
Oh
was
yeah.
not married, not allowed to marry a white man because he assumed my dad was black. He thought I was the stereotype product of a white mom, black dad. But in all actuality, my father was white. My mom was the black one. But so anyways, yeah, I was at Bethel, and they would make us, do morning devotion. We'd have to read our Bible for an hour. I'd get in trouble all the time for falling asleep because it was boring. And we'd have to memorize scripture and sing, and then we would clean, and then we get ready. Then we had chow. Then we would do morning chapel. And then we go to school, have lunch, come home from school. We would do chores. If you had any demerits, then you would run them off or do your exercises, get worn out. Then it was clean again, dinner, shower was 5-minute shower time. That's all you got.
Uh-huh.
And then you pray and you go to bed and you do it again. It was on repeat all day, it was just on repeat. So I was 12 years old, and I remember them calling me from the trailer to go to Brother Herman Fountain's house. I'm like, oh my God, what did I do now? Like, so I was always
Oh
getting in
boy.
trouble. I stayed in trouble. I had a smart mouth. I even tried to run away once. I got caught. Some old
Uh-huh.
man picked me up and said, hey, I'll take it to the police station. But, my gut said, don't get in the car, Brina. But I was like, I need to call the cops. So I got in the car and this motherfucker took me back to Bethel. Yep.
Take me back to Bethel. Yeah,
Took
that's
me
a
back to
song I know.
Bethel. So don't trust old men in the vehicle if you're running away.
It's
So,
like those don't pick up the hitchhikers next to the prison, you know?
yeah. Don't do it. So then Herman Fountain goes, you got 10 minutes to pack your stuff. You're going home. And I'm like, what? And they were like, you're going home. And this surprised me because I didn't get phone calls. I didn't get care packages or letters while I was in the program. And you had to write to your family, whether you liked to or not. And all of that stuff was censored. So I would write, but when no one would write back. So I was so surprised. So I'm running back to the trailer and I see this car pull up and it stops and it's my adopted dad. And he's like, you ready to go? And I was like, fuck my shit. Bye. Get in the vehicle. That whole time that night in the hotel, I couldn't even sleep because I kept checking the window because I thought they were going to come back and take me. That's how traumatized I was.
Yeah.
So when I came home, the first person I told about what happened in the programs was my sister because she just got out of her program herself. It had got shut down because she ran away. And when she got back, they beat her so bad. When CPS came to check on her, they saw the bruises from her butt down to her thighs was black and blue.
Where did she go?
She went to Charity Haven and Victory Acres.
Victory Acres.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
there's another new one right there.
Yeah. So around the time she got our aunt came and picked her up in September of 99. And then I was picked up in December of 99. So once my adopted dad heard like, hey, Beverly got abused, I'm getting my baby. Like, you know what I mean? He didn't want me in those programs. So I think it was in his control because he didn't abuse us. Our mother abused him too. Like he was just a very weak man. Yeah, she beat the shit out of him. I remember one time she went to the nursing home and was really bad sick and she was a diabetic. And so she was on a special diet and she had him sneak food in and he forgot her pickles. And she was like, Larry, you don't love me, you fat fucking piece of shit. And I was like, how do you talk to your husband that way? And he's like, I do love you. Like me, if my husband spoke to me like that, I would have thrown the food into space. You know what I mean? And walked off. Like he stuck by her side. And I'll never understand that because there were times when she would go to hit us. He would stand in front of us and take the hit. You just take it. But he was so brainwashed by his religion himself. He was Baptist. You didn't get a divorce.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
What he should have done was divorce her fat fucking ass, turn her into the cops, and took us and got us into therapy. But he didn't do that. So he went crazy psycho and tried to commit suicide several times. So he didn't have no control because of what happened with me because he lost that once he tried to commit suicide. My aunts got custody and they didn't give a shit. They would keep the adoption checks, never pay my tuition, file me on their taxes, even though I didn't live with them. I was just a paycheck to them. They didn't care. They left me there till I turned 18. So I come home from Bethel. My adopted mother dies. I come home from school the week after she dies, and my aunt has my stuff packed. And she's like, I'm sending you back to Bethel. I said, do you know anything about Bethel? Because you just packed a bunch of regular ass clothes, and we wear uniforms. So you don't even know what you're sending me back to. And she's yelling at me over this fucking bikini, and it's not even mine. It's my sister's because before she moved out, we shared a bedroom together, and she left a lot of her shit. And I said, that's not even my bikini. And you know what? When we got to Bethel and they started unpacking my stuff, she packed that bikini to make it look like I was dressing like that as a reason to send me back to Bethel. Told them I was running away and doing drugs. I'd never done drugs in my life. Yeah.
Well, they wanted you in there bad, didn't they?
They sure did. So I was at Bethel.
Were they still getting a check while you were in there?
Yeah, they were still getting the check. They would never pay my tuition.
Free money.
I never had money on my we had like a commissary account to get like toiletries. I would have to trade and wheel and deal with girls to get shampoo and conditioner.
Hustling, huh?
Yeah, hustling.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have nothing. I would watch girls get care packages and they would cry because they got Suave shampoo instead of Garnier Fructis. And I'm like sitting over here with nothing. It's horrible. So anyways, I tried to buck the system and then I meet this girl named Alexis and we become best friends. And she's like, yeah, just work the program so you can get out. And so I did. And I worked the levels all the way up to get on night watch. And night watch or fire watch is where you make sure nobody runs away. You stay up all night, you do your homework, you do some cleaning, like you might clean the bathrooms, do some laundry, sweep up the floors, but then you could watch TV and drink coffee. And then you could sleep all day. So you didn't have to get more, you didn't have to do PT with anyone. So I was like, well, fuck yeah, this is the life. You know, I did that. Well, anyways, you know, I was sitting there, got super depressed and wrote a will to my family because I was like, I'm going to die in these places. They're not, you know, and I just got angry. So I wrote a will and they saw it. And, you know, they actually mailed that shit out to my family. And my aunt wrote me a letter back and chewed me out and said I was ungrateful. My adopted mom never abused me, gaslit me, all this stuff, said I needed to be there, blah, blah, blah. All right. So, you know, there was times I had nothing and I would just, you know, wheel and deal with these girls. And so I wound up working the program because my friend was working the program. She's like, man, let's just do it. That way we don't get extra shit on us, you know. And
this is Bethel, right?
Bethel. So
okay.
I worked the program, get on night watch, and I write a letter and I include a will on what would, if I were to die, what's going to happen, because they would wear us out to the point where like you would feel like you were going to die, like you would pass out. They would hold you underwater and drown you and then resuscitate you with smelly salt or by dumping water on your face. I thought I was going to, you know, something was going to happen. So I wrote this, you know, will. And my aunt writes me back and, you know, is chewing me out and all this stuff. So I get really mad. I get pissed off. So me and two other girls decide to run away that night. And so I trusted these older girls because they were 15 and 16 and I was 13 at the time. And I ran away and we walked all the way to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And we stopped at this laundromat to rest until we could figure out what we were going to do. And I remember waking up and they had left me at the laundromat. And I was so scared that I actually called Bethel and asked them to pick me back up.
Oh, Sabrina.
I know. Instead of, I didn't know, I should have asked somebody, but I was so scared to talk to strangers or picked up or, you know. And
this is Mississippi, you know,
yeah.
Dangerous.
And so these girls, they wound up, you know, they come pick me back up. I'm in trouble. I get put back down to orientation level, which is like you have to start all the way at the bottom again. I had to stand on the wall, which is standing in the corner with your nose touching for like weeks at a time at 8 and everything. There's times where I was wetting myself because they wouldn't even let me get out to go to the bathroom. Well, anyways, all of a sudden I'm allowed to shower and clean myself back up, but then I have to go back in the corner. And this CPS lady comes through and I hear her asking, how long has she been in here? And he's like, oh, only a couple hours. We give her breaks. And I couldn't say anything because if not, they were going to beat you.
Yeah.
So they wound up finding the two girls because they, you know, got caught or whatever. And those girls came back and they had to be tested for STDs and stuff because they had been gang raped. They had been given drugs, all that stuff. I think one of the girls had to go on antibiotics.
Maybe it was a blessing that they left you behind.
And one of the girls, because I was mad. I was like, you left me at a laundromat. And they were like, be glad that you did. Like, we left you there because you were so young. They're like, we figured maybe you would have go to the police and go get help. And I was like, well, no, that's what I thought you was going to do with me. Like, you know, because the more of us together, the more likely they're going to believe, like, as a unit. And it just didn't happen. So I wound up just bucking the system, and they would have girls pin you down and try to beat you up. But, you know, I'm tiny but mighty. And my sister had always taught me, you know, when I got the program, I told her, like, you know, I would have girls just hold me down and I'm just not strong. She's like, you focus on one girl and you beat the shit out of her and you don't stop, because eventually they're going to want to stop because they're not going to have to explain why she has a broken nose and you have to take her to the hospital. So they'll get off of you. And so that's what I did. And I did that up until I left each program. And so I did. So, I wound up getting kicked out of Bethel, and what they did was they told me that we were getting in the van to go get supplies from Lucedale. I don't know why I had ran away, so I know why. They didn't tell me. I know why now. I ran away. Right? So I ran away. So I'm in the back of this van that has no seats, and this girl named Brenda's sitting up front, custodian. They keep looking behind me. So looking behind at me is I already knew. I was like, you're transporting me somewhere. But they
Oh,
used to threaten. They used to threaten to send us to Tranquility Bay in Jamaica. So that's where
oh
I
my
thought I was
goodness.
going. I was like, fuck, I'm dead. I'm not gonna be a goner. At least I'm gonna die in Jamaica.
In
You know.
Jamaica.
I get back, we get to Lucedale, Mississippi, and we get to Herman Fountain's house, and guess who's sitting on the front porch? Papa Hen.
Oh,
He opened up the program. I was like, well, at least it's his old ass, like at this point in time, Bill McNamara and Jen McNamara was no longer working for him, and they were working for the Rebekah Home for Girls. So that was great. So I was like, oh, it's going to be so easy because he's old. We could like totally take on this old man, like if we need to, and
right.
he hires some old ladies and they're so sweet. So it wasn't like that bad. I mean, the girls were more of like bullies, but then his wife Norma Walkden's program gets shuts down and she comes up there to run it. And and she was just evil. And so I get on red shirt again. Was made to stand on a ladder.
What home is this?
Victory Acres, Charity
Victory
Haven.
Acres. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Charity Haven was Victory Acres?
It's two sister facilities. One was ran by the husband and ran by the wife, but at this point in time, it's Victory Acres because Charity Haven got shut down.
Okay.
So I just stand on this ladder and take this chisel and hammer and drill a square hole out in the wall so he could fit an air conditioning unit in the wall as punishment. Like all day. That's all I did while the girls were at school. I just drilled this. I was always in trouble. I think like the entire time there ate nothing but peanut butter and butter sandwiches. So
you were used to that.
Yeah, I was used to it. So CPS comes in because a couple girls run away. They put us in a room together. I'm allowed to shower. They take my red shirt from me, give me regular clothes. So I know something's up because, the fact that they have to do that to hide. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
So they tell us to pray. The whole time I'm not praying. I'm taking a fucking nap because I'm not going to pray for God to save Charity or this girl's home. Like, get me the fuck out of here. So I'm taking a nap. And they're like, they call my name because CPS wants to talk to me. And I'm like, this time I'm going to fucking tell it like it is. So I sung like a fucking canary. I told them about how they take away everything, our privileges, they showers, lack of nutrition. And you could tell at this point I'd lost weight. My face was so pale. And I'm like kind of melanated. And I looked white at this point, with African-American features. Like I was so pale, rings around my eyes. And I told them that I had saw one of the staff members at the time, and she was what was like a helper. She had graduated one of the Jubilee programs in Texas and came to work for the Walkdens, and she had a 3-year-old little girl. And because the little girl did not say yes, ma'am, back to her mom, Norma Walkden put red pepper flakes on the little girl's tongue and made her hold it, and she screamed.
Oh.
And so they wound up closing the program and taking that little girl away. And I felt so bad for the mom because it wasn't her fault. And you could tell it was upsetting her because she was crying, but she couldn't say anything because the Norma would punish her. Like, and she's like, you say yes, ma'am. She was 3. She could barely talk. I mean, she's just a baby.
Oh my goodness.
So that program shuts down. And my aunt comes to get me, and I'm in this placement house from this lady in the church that we were attending. Was like, well, I'll take these girls and let their families come pick them up. I want to make sure they get picked up by their families, and then they'll get sent back. Do you know what my aunt does?
Huh.
Drives me down to Milton, Florida, and I'm the only girl at Charity Haven. They just didn't want my fucking ass. Like, why did they just send me back to the orphanage where I came from? Why did all this shit have to happen? So I'm there, and my sister shows up, Beverly, and she's an adult. And I'm like, why the fuck is Beverly here? Well, Beverly was running from an abusive husband and needed somewhere a place to stay. You would think because she's an adult, she'd be like, nah, you ain't treat my sister this way. Let's roll out. I got you. No, she lets them fucking kidnap my fucking ass in the middle of the night and fucking take me to the Rebekah home. So Bill McNamara comes and wakes me up in the middle of the night with two girls singing and says, we could do this the easy way or the hard way with handcuffs and shackles. And I was like, I'll take easy way for 500, Alex, because I already know how this is going to go. So I get in the fucking van and we drive and we head to Devil's Elbow, Missouri. And we show up to this boys' academy called Thanks to Calvary. And I'm like, why are we at some boys' school? And they were like, you don't speak unless we tell you to. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
Well, I didn't know this at the time, but the Rebekah Home had just got raided and shut down, and he escaped with girls, and that's where he was hiding us.
Oh, man.
Until he could reopen in Pace, Florida. So eventually we move over to Pace, Florida, to the new program, and renamed the program from Rebekah Home to New Beginnings Girls Academy. Well, New Beginnings Girls Academy was same shit, different toilet, just like the roll-off programs, just didn't have an isolation room. There was one of the worst traumatic experiences of my life. Worst program I ever been to, worse than Bethel. And Bethel was pretty fucked up. I mean, I had to pick fucking cotton. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was there, and I was there about a year. I was not allowed to shower for 3 months straight while I was on my period.
Oh.
I was not allowed to brush my teeth. I had to stand at the end of my bed at attention with my arms down all night until 5 a.m. And then from 5 a.m. to 6, I was allowed to sleep 1 hour a day. I had to sleep on a mattress that had no sheets, no pillow, no blanket, just plastic, because he didn't want me stinking up the mattress. As if I had a choice. It's not like I didn't want to shower. I wanted to shower. And then he'd come and torment me and say that I stunk and make fun of me, and he threw me in the pool. Well, after that happened, I got pissed off and I was like, I'm going to take a fucking shower. So I stole somebody's shampoo, got in the shower and was like, you try to come get me out of here, I'm going to fight you. And he came in there because I had told him that I wanted to shower. So before I decided to steal the person's shampoo, I told him what had happened. And I was like, look, I can't wipe myself down there. I said, my hair is clotted because you wasn't allowed to shave, you know. So I was like, my hair is clotted because you're not letting me wash myself and I can't wipe. And so when I go to wipe myself after I pee, I can't wipe and it hurts. Like, can I please shower? He's like, I talked to my wife and she says that don't happen down there. And I said, has your wife been without a shower for 3 months straight? I said, because I'll pull my pants down right now and show it to her. And they didn't believe me. And I got so pissed off. And they knew what was going on. They just didn't even want to see, or they didn't believe me. They didn't care.
Right.
So I was like, I'm taking a fucking shower. So I did. Well, he drags me out with 4 other girls. They're beating the shit out of me. He's trying to whoop me with the paddle. And I wound up kicking his wife. And so he drugged me from the girls' dorm, which was attached to his house, into his living room, where he continues to beat me.
You were naked?
Yes, I was naked. And they poured liquid Dawn dish soap down my throat. Yes. And to the point I was puking soapy bile, and then he made me clean up by hand. He had the other girls that were assisting with the torturous trauma sing, so that way my screams wouldn't wake up his daughter Cassie, who was sleeping in the other room. He shined a flashlight in my eyes, said I was demon possessed, and tried to exorcise my demons, said I was worthless. He would just continue to just beat me. Pretty much said I was going to be a whore, just like my sister Beverly. I was 14 at this point in time, you know. So how could I have been a whore if I was sent to the program? Like, you know what I mean? He would just do that shit all the time. He was a pervert. And he would tell us girls that he would spank his own wife when she got out of line. Yes, and to be prepared to be spanked by our husbands in the future. I think he had a sick perversion and got off on us. I mean, he was whooping me naked. It's gross.
I mean, he didn't make you get dressed so he could beat you.
Right.
He did it naked.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So then he stands, I get up, you know, because every time he pushed me down, and, you know, I'm getting right back up, and he would put his fingers in my chest up into the point where I was falling into his fireplace. And because I kept getting back up, that was pissing him off, you know? So he was like, you're worthless. You're hopeless. You're going to just end up lying on your back one day, you know? So I go back out to the dorm. I'm allowed to sleep the next day. I'm allowed to shower. I'm allowed to clean up. I'm even allowed to shave. And I'm like, this is weird. So, you know, I'm going to go down here. I don't know how long this lasts. So I'm shaving every day. You know, I ain't going to do this again. So then they call me and they give me my mattress, like the sheets and stuff and everything back. And I'm like, maybe he feels bad. Maybe he thinks like, oh shit, we took it to another level. Like, you know what I mean? Because you would think his wife would have said something, but no, like she was even more cold-hearted, bitchy than him. Like she was horrible. So then they called me off to this other like, I don't know, house on their on their property that they have, and there's this lady sitting there, and she's like, "Hi, I'm so and so from Children's Services." I'm like, oh, thank God, you know. But she, in front of my abusers, is like, "Were you abused?" And I'm like, she's not gonna believe everything that just happened last night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she is then further questioning me, saying, do you have family? Where can you go? And I was like, well, I have a sister. I don't know where she's at. I'm not allowed to write her. So I got 2 brothers. They're in prison. My mom's dead. My dad's in the loony bin. And she's like, well, do you want to go to foster care? And I was like, not really, which I probably should have took foster care, but I chose to go to the Reclamation Ranch because I remember, I know, dumbass. I remember seeing Jack Patterson several times, and he was funny and charismatic, and his girls were smiling and laughing. They could wear makeup. They could talk.
Really?
I was like, yes. I was like, well, they don't look that bad. He buys some cheeseburgers and shit. I want to go to his ranch. Because I remember he would come to Bethel, and because he was an evangelistic street preacher. At this point in the 90s, when I met him, he just ran a men's home in Washington. And then he later on opened up a program in Tennessee. He opened up a boys' home and a girls' home. So I go to this girls' home. They drive me to Tennessee, and I meet Miss Trudy, the staff, the house mother, and a couple other girls. And then the first thing that happens in the van, when I get in the van, because it's all nice and smiles, get in the van, one of the leaders turns around, her name's Jessica, and she's like, if you try to run away, we'll beat the shit out of you. I'm like, man, fuck. Like, I fucked up. Like, damn it. I turn around in the back of the van, and there's a girl from the Rebekah Home. I'm like, fuck.
Oh, man.
It's just another place for them to send off their rejects. So I was like, man, I should have took foster care. What the fuck? Like,
out of the frying pan right into the fire.
I know. Like, so I'm at this place, and they used to make us do what's called woodpile, where you take a log and you have to carry it to point A, drop it, pick it back up, carry it to point B, and you just do this for hours. Well, I got really good at it. And what's crazy is the exercise would have benefited me because I was so angry to get that out. But because they took it to the extent of abuse, it didn't work. You know, all they did was make me stronger to beat their asses. Like, it was stupid. At this point, I'm 5'2", 160 pounds, but my legs are solid muscle. Well, I was always getting in trouble. And you got to understand, in these places, you can get in trouble for anything, for looking like you have an attitude. Now, I got a really bad case with RBF. My face looks like I'm mad almost all the time. And the way I talk, I'm a smart ass. So I was always getting in trouble for my mouth, or not saying yes, ma'am fast enough, or saying yes, ma'am with an attitude. So I was always getting demerits. These girls, you could fart wrong and they'd write a demerit just because they didn't like you. So I was getting demerits. Well, this one girl didn't like me, and she decided that she was going to take her perfume and put it in my toiletry bin to make it look like I stolen. Well, I'm smart. If I was going to steal, I'm not going to put it in an obvious spot. And that shit smell like nasty musk. No one wants to smell like an old lady. Like, who the fuck?
Right.
So I'm trying to defend myself. So I'm defensive. Plus I'm cussing because now I'm pissed off and I'm ready to beat this bitch's ass. And I'm like, who the fuck would put shit? So I get in trouble for cussing. They're trying to wash my mouth out with soap. And then I'm cussing even more. So then Miss Trudy breaks out her paddle to go spank me. Well, I'm on my back, and these girls are trying to put my legs over my head to get her to whoop me. So, well, I lock my legs around one girl's, neck and do what I do. I'm sitting there beating the crap out of her. So as I'm banging her face up against the, bottom bunk of the rails, I'm telling them, like, I'm not going to stop until you stop. So, like, I'll bash her fucking face in. I don't care. So Miss Trudy could see, like, oh, shit, this is going down bad. I don't want to have to explain to this girl's mom, who actually pays tuition while she's in the hospital. So
Right.
she tells him to stop, get off me, and the girl's threatening me. He's telling me I'll sleep with one eye open. I'm like, why you gotta wait till I'm asleep? Like obviously you're scared, like you can't, whatever. So then Miss Trudy, I'm expecting her to like just whack me in the face with this paddle, but surprisingly, she's like, I can tell you've been abused. And I'm like, no shit, huh? Like I'm not gonna let you beat me. Like, sorry. And she's like, well, I'm not gonna do that. And she never spanked me again. And then she tried to mother me and then nurture me. I was being groomed. And it was that mothering, nurturing, kind of whatever. She would buy my toiletries and all this stuff. And I think she did feel bad, but she wanted to adopt me. But my aunt said no because they would miss out on that money. But Miss
Right.
Judy would have got that money had she adopted me. And she could have fought that. But because she was a felon,
Oh.
so, yeah. So I had previous charges or whatever. I actually don't say she was a felon, but she was an ex-biker, and she had, I think she does have charges now, but whatever.
Okay.
She had other shit, but she hung out with all, I'm talking about. Like
Right.
they wouldn't have let her legally adopt. Like it had to be an illegal adoption. You know what I mean? Like them sign over, like here's, custody and you can claim her. But my aunts didn't want to do that. They want to keep that money.
Right.
So they used to take us to different churches in different states and a bus, and we would sing testimonies, same thing again. And we end up in Eaton, Ohio. And I'm giving my little speech, and I'm like, I know, I live in Eaton, Ohio. But anyways, so I'm sitting there giving my little speeches, about like, hi, I'm Sabrina, my family was abusive, blah, 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 blah. And there was this family that took half of us girls to their house after church to have dinner and stuff in between services. And there was a little mixed girl. They had a little biracial daughter. And I was like, oh, she looks like me, And so while the other girls were napping and watching TV, I was playing with this little girl. Well, before we leave, she's like, can I write to Sabrina? And Miss Trudy's like, that's fine. So we exchanged letters back and forth. Well, one day Miss Trudy was like, hey, the Conleys want you to come live with them. So I'm like, well, hell yeah. She's like, I don't believe that you belong in these programs. You weren't a troubled kid. Yes, you're angry, but I think that these programs these places are making you angry.
Right.
And that was
right.
probably one of the best decisions she probably could have done. And, I think a lot of it was like, well, they're not going to let me adopt her. At least let someone go live it. So I go and I live with this family. But
How old were you?
I was
At that?
16.
16. Okay.
16 at this time. So I come to Eaton, Ohio, and I live with this family. But it's the same thing. Like the family dynamics were overlooked. They didn't know anything about my past history. Normally when you foster a child, you have to take trauma-informed classes and all this stuff, and you get a file. They just assumed I was a troubled teen. They didn't get to know me. And of course I didn't say anything about the abuse because who's going to believe me, right? Like
Right.
there were little
Right.
things that I would say about the programs to see if I could like work my way into telling them, and they would be like, oh no, I don't believe that would happen. They wouldn't do that. And I was like, yep, no, I can't tell them. Like, you know what I mean? So I wind up getting into an argument. And at this time, you got to understand the woman who was supposed to be like my mom was 25 years old. So that was really weird. Yeah. Her husband was like like 20 years younger than her, or 20 years older than her.
Okay.
Older than her. So she was like 20. She met when when she was 19. And so she had been groomed too. She's divorced from him now, and she's actually like a mom to me. But I'll get on to that later.
Okay.
So I would get blamed for little stuff like they found, I think, apple juice in the pantry that had been opened and put back, and she was like, her husband's like, oh, it's probably Sabrina trying to make alcohol, those troubled teens. And I'm like, you can make alcohol out of apple juice? How?
Making that Pruno.
I didn't know how. I was like, what the fuck? Like, they just assume shit. It was just horrible.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I wound up going, and there's more to it, but I want people to read my book. So
Okay,
I
sure.
wrote a book so they can just read.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did. It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon. What's the book called?
It's called Dear Renisha, Turning Trauma into Triumph.
All right.
So
after the podcast, send me the link.
Okay.
And I'll put it on the description below.
Okay.
Yes.
So I wind up get into an argument with Holly about something, and I wanted to just leave to think and get out, And I didn't want to walk out the front door because I was just scared that there was going to be an altercation and they would try to stop me and I would get in a fight, and so I just snuck out the window. Well, I left the window open because I didn't want them to hear me shut it. Well, Mara had just had a hemispherectomy, which is a brain surgery where they remove pieces of the brain that have seizure activity because she had epilepsy.
Okay.
Because she had just had surgery, she could have caught pneumonia and got sick. So Holly sent me back to the girls' home. So
which one was it? What girls' home was that?
I went back to Reclamation Ranch, but by this time it had moved to Empire, Alabama. So it's in Empire, Alabama. We got more girls, so it gets stricter. It gets harder. It got to the point where they were punishing us all as a unit. Like one girl snuck a cell phone in and it got undetected for like 6 months, and we all got punished for it. I didn't even know she had a cell phone. So I'm sitting there because we had to get up. They took our shower privileges away. We had to get up at 4 a.m. and scrub walls, then do an hour of calisthenics, and then go about the rest of our day. It's the same thing over again. Well, I'm pissed off because this is day 2 of this shit, and I hadn't had nothing to do with the fucking cell phone. It's not my fault that they missed it during checking her bags. Why are we being punished for their mistake? Like, that's not our fault. So I just see red, and this girl had long blonde hair, and she's standing in front of me, the one that snuck the cell phone. I just whooped her ass. Everybody sat down. I know. Everybody just sat down and let me get a good 10 minutes before they got me off. Trudy's like, why are you beating people up? Like, what is going on with you? And I'm like, I'm just angry. Like, why are we being punished? That's not our fault that you missed the cell phone. So again, she agrees with me, like, okay, yeah, got point. That's, they didn't like that because I would make points, I wasn't trying to be argumentative, but I would just call it the bullshit. Well, they had said that in the state of Alabama, you're non-adult till you're 19 years old. And granted, people, there is no internet research for me to do to even see if this is a real thing. So I still haven't Googled this to this day because I think if I find out that it's false, I'm just going to be so pissed, But they threatened to keep me there, and they were trying to groom me as staff. And I was like, I want to get out this motherfucker. I don't want to be here no more. So then they were like, well, when you graduate high school, you can leave. But only because they said, if you don't let me leave when I turn 18, the next church we go to sing and give our testimony, my testimony is going to be a lot different. They abuse us. They beat us. They force feed us. And I'm going to tell them about what you do. So they were like, okay, graduate high school. So I graduated. My diploma says December of 2004 on it because I was staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning, cheating on my paces. Yes, I cheated. Cheating on my paces, writing the answers because I want to get up out this. I still don't know my timetables, and I'm 36 years old.
Sabrina, when you said, when that lady said, why are you beating people up? With any human, dog, cat, any animal, if you put them in a corner,
yes,
they're going to fight their way out.
Fight back.
They're going to fight their way out. They don't care who they have to hurt. They're going to get out of there.
Yeah,
exactly. So you don't know your times tables.
Yeah.
Wow.
No.
Now, when you graduated, that ACE program is not accredited.
It's not accredited, but my community college accepted it twice.
Really?
Yes, they did.
It wasn't a Christian. It wasn't a Christian college.
No, I went to PJ's Cosmetology School. College,
oh, okay.
And then I went to Sinclair Community College in Dayton, Ohio. So they accepted it as a homeschool diploma.
Curriculum. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep. So they accept that here in Ohio. But at the time, I didn't think it was going to be accepted for university in Florida. In Florida, I didn't know this at the time, but if you're an adoptee, you get to go to any college for fucking free until age 27. Nobody told me this shit, so I moved back to Ohio after I left the programs. Yeah. Could have became a fucking lawyer. It would have helped this movement. Damn it.
Right.
But, if money, because you're thinking like money, fuck, university's expensive, and I'm like, I'm only half black. I can't get a scholarship. Like, what am I going to get a scholarship for? Being a good Christian? Like, I wasn't going back to no Christian college. Fuck that.
Well, and just the same, when you got out of there, the only thing you were thinking of, get as far away from that place as possible.
Exactly.
you know, and Dayton, Ohio is pretty far from Pace, Florida.
Well, I moved back to Jacksonville for about 3 weeks, and I lived with my granny. And she had a picture in her room of my adopted mother from when she died from her funeral, and it had pictures of her when she was young. And I don't ever remember seeing pictures of her when she was young. And I went into her room, she left the door open. I was just looking at the pictures, and she accused me of stealing. She's like, "What are you doing in my room trying to steal?" I'm like, and you can see me. I'm not rooting through nothing. I'm just standing there looking at the poster board. And I said, "Granny, I'm just looking at Mom's pictures. I don't ever remember seeing this picture of her when she was young." She's like, "No, you ain't changed." I'm like, "What do you mean I ain't changed? What did I even do to get sent? What are you talking about?" So I was like, fuck that. So I'm venting on the phone to one of my friends that I went to church with and played volleyball with when I lived in Eaton. She's like, "Hey, my parents didn't come live here." So I did. I got on a Greyhound bus, $40, left my shit, 2 suitcases, and went to Eaton, Ohio. Never looked back. So when I was here before, when I was 16, I had met this guy named Dustin at a basketball game. He was older, but I wasn't allowed to date him because he didn't go to church and he smoked a lot of weed. But we would sneak and talk on the phone, and I liked him because he didn't judge me. He didn't care. I went to no program, and I was like, "Dude, I'm not even a troubled teen. Like, I've never even smoked pot. Like, I didn't smoke pot till I was a fucking adult." Yeah. So,
Nice.
and they would try to get me to date boys in the church. Like I wanted to date this one boy, but they didn't like him. They didn't, because he was mouthy. So they pretty much had me go date this. They were like, "Well, you can date this one guy named Donnie," but he was 18. Now that was weird. Like, I'm 16 and I can't date a 16-year-old, but I can date a grown adult man. Then, well, anyways, he creeped me out because he was fucking Pisces, which I'm a Pisces, but men Pisces is a whole nother breed.
I'm a Pisces.
I'm sorry, but y'all crazy. Y'all, he's crazy, man. He's crazy.
Not all of us are crazy.
Wait, are you a March? Are you a March Pisces or are you a February Pisces?
I'm a March Pisces.
Oh, okay, yeah, he was crazy. He was March Pisces. Sorry, but I'm a March Pisces, so I know because I'm crazy. But anyways, so I find this. Well, anyways, I'll tell you what he did. So we're driving to Richmond, Indiana, the next state over, because that's where you got to go to the mall, because Eaton's like nothing but cornfields here and farms. So we're driving, and there's this raccoon that's, crossing the street, and he runs over it and he just kills it. And then he would run over and just kill cats. I'm a cat person. I like animals in general. And I thought to just intentionally go out and hurt it was disgusting. It wasn't doing nothing. It wasn't like in your trash or like. So I broke up with him. I was like, "You're a psycho. Like, it's some psychopathic shit. You're just out here hurting little animals for no fucking reason. It'd be one thing if you were hunting it for food,
Right.
but you're not hunting it for food. Like, who eats raccoons and fucking cats?" I mean, I'm sure there are people who do that, but not me. So I broke up with him because he was weird.
I wonder if he turned out to be a serial killer, because that's one of the.
I still see him today at Walmart.
Oh,
He'll stare. I just walk right on past him. I see him and he's fat now and everything. He's lonely, still lives with his parents. He's a little off. Something's weird. Well, he admitted to me when he was 10, he tried to kill his mom, and I was like, I'm out. Crazy. You try to kill your mom. You kill animals. Nope. So
we're done.
Yeah, I'm crazy. So I get with Dustin, So I moved back here and I meet with Dustin again. Well, being in the girls' homes, they teach, don't have sex, blah, blah, blah. So what's my ass do? Have sex, gets pregnant. And I get stuck. But it turns out good. We've been together 18 years. Married.
Good.
2 beautiful children. So, but he was one of the first people besides my sister that I opened up and talked to about what I went through, because, he's sitting there in the bed next to me as I'm beating the shit out of him from having a nightmare. Like, and he's like, "Whoa, like, you was saying, get off me." And I'm like, "I'm not on you." And then you're like, "I don't care, get off me." And you're hitting me. Like, what was all that about? Now it's like, so I tell him, like, "Hey, I was in these programs, and then I started finding stuff on Reddit and Yahoo about these programs. Who uses Yahoo anymore? And so, and he's seeing this shit, right? Well, Jack Patterson comes to our town, to that church, and I have we bought a house right by that church, Gateway Baptist Church. So it's like right around the corner. So at this point in time, Jack Patterson comes into town and Dustin goes, you want to go over there and see him? I was like, yeah, let's go over there. So we sat there and I told my husband, I was like, dude, he says the same ass raggedy ass jokes over and over again. I probably will be able to quote his sermon. And I did. I was in there quoting his sermon, like mouthing, and my husband's just looking at me, smiling, shaking his head. So at the end, I introduced my husband. My husband's 6'3", 260 pounds. Jack Patterson's about 400 pounds, 6'5". You know, well, I just wanted to meet my husband, to rub it in his face that, hey, motherfucker, I married me a white man because you said I couldn't. Well, I did. You know, fuck you. So we go over there. The first thing he does is, are you guys married? And you could see the wedding ring on my finger. I'm like, yes. And he goes, is he the dad of both of your kids? And they're clearly white passing, looking like dad. And my husband's not the type of person who's just going to sit there and take it. He's like, what the fuck does it matter? Like in church, he's like, what the fuck does it matter? And people's like, oh, you know, because he's getting loud. And he's like, why do you keep bringing up race? Like, what is your problem with race? And like, what does it matter that she married? I said, you remember I told you, honey? He said I couldn't marry a white man. That's why he keeps asking. He's like, yes, they are my children. Yes, we are married. You know? So we got wind that he wanted to open up a program. So I come home all mad about it because I was like, Dustin, I heard he wants to open up a program. And he's like, not my fucking town. So we go over there, and my husband, he's like, I got you back, baby. And we go over there and we tell him, like, you're not opening up a program. If you do, I'll be outside. I don't care if I'm by myself, and protest. I will let every parent who comes in this door know what you did. Like, I'll have the proof. So he packs his stuff up and moves. Well, at this point in time, the Comleys was the family that I lived with when I moved here when I was 16. We reconnected. I wanted forgiving them and all that shit. And I wanted working for them. Well, they owned a business in Preble County. Well, Bill McNamara comes through town and stays at their business with the girls overnight. Well, I was asked to go unlock the doors for this business. They didn't tell me. They just said a church group. So I'm thinking it's like a singing group because they have bluegrass singers come up and sing all the time. And I was like, oh, it's probably some. Well, I walk to the back to go unlock, and I see New Beginnings Girls Academy, Pace Florida.
Oh, no.
My heart just sunk. I'm frantically searching for my cell phone. It's left. I left it at the baby shower. Go inside, and I see Bill McNamara asleep in the chair. I sneak past him. I'm looking at the girls because I'm pissed. I'm like, because they didn't know what they did to me. Because remember, I hadn't said anything. So I'm like, oh, hell no. Like, you fucked up. So I go in there to my dad's office, and they're sitting, Jen McNamara at my dad's desk, typing away. She looks up from the computer, and she's like, what are you doing here? I said, my parents own this place. Snatched the phone up, called my mom. I said, we need to talk. I need you. I was in this program. She's like, I thought you just went to the ranch. I said, no, I've been to 5. I said, and I was in this program, and it was one of the worst ones. I said, this is the program that I was in where I wasn't allowed to shower for 3 months. She's like, oh, my God, come over right now. So I hang up. I'm trying to rush out of there. Bill McNamara wakes up and sees me, and he goes, hey, you, I remember you, and hugs me. I couldn't even move. Like, I'm still like this 14-year-old little girl that's scared to say anything because every little evil thing he did to me was coming back, and now he's like touching me. So I go back to the baby shower, stay there for a little bit, try to like collect myself because I'm upset. I want to take in my daughter, get my stuff, going over to Holly's, and I just dump and I tell her everything. The whole time her husband's like, well, they wouldn't have done that stuff if you had just listened. Holly's like, that doesn't mean she deserves to be abused. So I have nothing to do with her husband anymore. We don't, or ex-husband. They're divorced now.
Right.
I don't talk to him or anything because he still supports these places and supports Jack Patterson. They're friends, supports Bill McNamara.
I mean, even prisoners shower 3 times a week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Murderers, rapists, they shower.
Yeah. And even when I was telling him these things about the showers, he's like, oh, that's probably why half the girls didn't come and shower with the other half of the girls because, you know, at the business they owned, it's a day hab for people with developmental disabilities. It didn't have a shower. And so they were letting them sleep there for the night, and then they could go to my parents' house and take a shower. And he said half the girls didn't show up. I said, see, that's proof. And he's like, well, it's like he just is like, well, they're good people. They go to church. It's okay. Like, And then when I would try to talk to him about it, I remember the first podcast I did with Surviving Abuse podcast, I went to share it with him, my impact statement. And he was like, I told you, I believed you. I just don't want to hear about it. And you're doing this for revenge, and you're bitter and you want sympathy. I'm 36. I'm past sympathy. I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I want you to feel sorry for the kids that are still going through this, and it's 2023. We've been battling this for years. And
Decades.
decades, no legislation, no reform, no nothing. Kids are dying. I'm tired of this. I showed him Circle of Hope interviews on NBC. I showed him Dateline interviews. I showed him a boy named Lucas. I showed him other girls from the Rebekah Home talking about things that I told them that happened to me, saying, yeah, I was there when Sabrina was there. This happened. Da, 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 da. And he still was like, well, I don't want to hear no more about it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm done with you. And he's like, if I had something happen to me, I wouldn't want people to know, and blah, blah, blah. You just move on from it. And I'm like, well, one, I have PTSD. I can't move on from it. Two, I can't move on from it knowing that this is still going on to kids. It keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
I want this shit to stop. And maybe I went through what I went through because, everyone tries to find the good and the bad. Maybe God or the universe thought, well, this bitch she's a tough bitch and she's going to take down the trouble teen industry. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm doing.
Some people just can't face the truth, even if the proof is right in front of them.
Right.
They just think to themselves, there's no way this guy could have done this. He's a man of God.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. On the live podcast I did, there was a pastor they caught him downloading video and pictures of children naked. It happens.
Yeah.
But some people just don't want to believe it. They're that brainwashed.
And then when you try to tell people that, like just Christians in general, the reaction, what they always hit you back with, the first thing is, well, that's not God. Yeah, I freaking know that. That's not the point. I'm telling you that you need to be aware of these people who act righteous and they're imitating God, but they're actually wolves in sheep's clothing preying on children. Where there's children, there's going to be predators. I don't give a fuck about separation of church and state. I know that it needs to be, but when it comes to children, there needs to be federal regulations, somebody in charge besides the fucking church, the government, or somebody. I don't even trust the government, but somebody needs to be in charge to make sure that they're not being exploited and abused and freaking trafficked and shit. Right.
And the thing is, even if let's say the pastor goes up to his congregation and says, I sinned, I did this with a child or whatever. Do you think those people are going to leave? No. He sinned. He backslid. He's a brother. We need to pray for him. They always need to pray for these people.
Yeah.
So even if the guy, let's say, murdered and raped a child, they're just going to forgive him, pray for him, and they might not let him pastor anymore. But, he's not going to be this shunned character who can never go back. You know what I mean? He'll always be welcome back somewhere.
We had a staff member at Bethel who was a Bethel girl back in the 80s and was groomed to marry Herman Fountain's son, his eldest son, Bubba, Herman Fountain Jr., when she was 16. And when she was in her 30s, she actually got pregnant by a 16-year-old boy that was in the program and had a baby by him. Yes. And at the time when we'd have more devotion, she would talk about, oh yeah, I cheated on Bubba. I had an affair. I had this baby. I had to give it up for adoption. And I regret it. And I have to explain this to my children. And she would use it in her life lessons on how you can fuck up in life and still become great, blah, blah, blah. Right.
Right.
But she always seemed to leave out the point that, yeah, I had an affair with a 16-year-old minor. Like, even though in the state of Mississippi, the age of consent is 15, she crossed a moral boundary there.
Right.
She was placed there to be a moral guide, and you're out here fucking 16-year-olds having their babies. And she gets pissed off at me because I talk about it today. But had that been a guy doing that, you know what I mean? Like, come on. And it still happens today in the industry.
Right. They would have wanted his head. They would have wanted his head. Exactly.
Yeah. Do I think, I know people off the bat were like, well, that's a predator. I get it. She was in a loveless marriage. I'm not trying to understand it. Did she continue to keep having sex with 16-year-olds? No. That's great and dandy, and she wants to move on from it. But I use that story as example that shouldn't have fucking happened. That shouldn't. But I'm supposed to listen to you and obey you.
Right.
To me, I taught my children respect is earned. I don't care if you're an elder or not. You don't let someone, I don't care if your grandparent disrespect you just because they're your elder. They don't get to talk to you at you sideways. That's how I raise my kids. Like, my kids snap back at me. Like, if I get out of line, you know, because you get pissed off and you holler at your kids and you say some stuff. What's up, son? I'm doing a podcast, buddy. You got to go. I'm doing a podcast. I need you to walk out. Okay? I'll talk to you later. Okay, friend? Go on, buddy. Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's all right. It's all right. We're pretty close to wrapping it up. But I wanted to ask you something. While you were there and you were giving your testimony, did they ever say you need to have a life verse?
Yeah, and I can't remember what mine was. It might have been like Philippians something.
4:13. Philippians 4:13.
I can do all things through Christ. Yeah.
That was everybody's.
That too. Yes.
That was, like I said, that's how I knew because I have some old recordings of Roll Off and they had some of the Rebekah girls. This is from the 70s. And all of them would come up, give their testimony. They were defeated, like I said. And at the very end, then they go, and my life verse is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ. I'm like, oh my goodness. It's a pattern.
Yeah.
It's not sincere. It's not sincere.
You can go on Amazon, and Lester Roloff has the Family Altar magazines out, and it shows you his plans for expanding the compound. He wanted to put shopping malls, shopping centers, stores in there, so that way you had no reason to leave the farm. It was a freaking cult. You know, you couldn't have black pepper, no caffeine. You drank unpasteurized milk, no pork. It had to be cayenne pepper. We fasted on Sundays, fasting, which was just forced starvation so you can get right with God. You can Google, actually YouTube, there's a video with Bill McNamara and the New Beginnings girls, and there's a girl that gives her testimony that says, God wouldn't let me eat, God wouldn't let me sleep. But it was really Bill McNamara not letting them sleep, not letting them eat till they got saved. And they would beat you and punish you until you got saved. So I've been saved 19 times and I've been baptized 15. And I have, like, my daughter just sent me a picture the other day because she was looking for her birth certificate to go renew her ID. And she found my old baptism certificate from 2005. And she's like, ew. And I was like, yeah, I've been baptized like 15 times. She's like, ew, Mom. I was like, I've been saved 19. Like, the first 18 didn't work. Which, you know, in theory, I kept saying, why do I need to be saved? Because I'm still under the age of accountability. I'm a child. Why do I need to be saved? Why do I need to be saved? And they would just argue that with me. Well, you still need to be saved. I'm like, well, if I die now, according to what you've preached, I'm going to go to heaven. I'm an innocent child. How can I be such a sinner? So it just confused me how I was such a dirty old sinner and I was just a child.
Did you ever go door to door trying to win souls?
No, but they did make us go street preaching in New York, and I had to sit there and yell at people with signs like, you're going to hell, you sinner. And I'm like, I'm going to get shot here in, like, you know, Bronx. Like, someone's going to shoot me for yelling. You know, they would yell at trans people, and, you know, and if you didn't scream and yell and sing, you know, and it sucked having to be that way. It's just disgusting. One, it's distracting drivers. It should be illegal as fuck to be on the side of the road with a sign. I don't care if you're the tax man. It's distracting. You're distracting drivers. It should be illegal.
Right.
So,
one more thing before we go. Just what is the name of your book again?
It's called Dear Renisha, Turning Trauma. Dear Renisha. Yeah. Okay. So the reason it's called Dear Renisha is when I was born, my biological mother, that was my name. It was Renisha. And when I was adopted, it got changed to Sabrina. But she named me after my older sister who passed away when she was 7. So it's like I'm writing a journal to her. Right. About my life, about what I went through. So I talk about adoption abuse and the troubled teen industry.
All right. So, so for everybody that's watching this, go check it out. The description, it'll be in the description below. I'll check out the Amazon link to it. But if you want to go ahead and send it to me as well. I'll send it to you. So, but anything, any last words, Sabrina?
No, but I just want people to, you know, if you're a parent and you need help for your child, because I understand there's a need in this industry, but what they're doing is not right. It's not evidence-based. It's not working, obviously.
Right.
There's thousands of us who came out and have told you guys about how they run these places, and it's a cult. I need you to start researching these places. Since survivors have been doing our own research, we have several organizations that can assist you with researching these places, such as unsilence.org, heal.org. We have a database on there with over 100,000 archives of different programs that have, abused children. So I need you to really just research these places and try to do community-based options for your child in the community, such as counseling and use resources in your community to help your child instead of just sending them away. Because two things are going to happen. If you send your child to these programs, they're going to come at home in a body bag, or they're going to be more traumatized than they were when they came to the program.
Right.
So I just want parents to research these places.
Yes, research them thoroughly.
Mm-hmm.
Ask questions, ask the tough questions that they don't want to answer. If they
And
say
ask
no,
questions. If your kid has gone through a program, ask questions when they come out. I'm not saying ambush them day one, but if they try to open up and talk to you, believe them. If they're trying I had evidence right in their face, like from my phone, and I've had people like just straight up, no, no, no. And if you're a survivor out there listening and you have family that's not listening, know that I will listen to you and I believe you.
yes. So go get the book, Dear Renisha. I'm going to go check it out. So, but stay on the line real quick, Sabrina.
Okay.
Talk to you real quick before you leave. I'm going to end the podcast. So everybody, thanks for watching. I want to thank Sabrina for coming on, telling her story. And like I said, get the book, Dear Renisha. Renisha, right?
Yep. Dear Renisha, Turning Trauma into Triumph.
That's a great title. That's
Thank
catchy
you.
right there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. So like I said, we have some people coming on in a couple of weeks. Get the Bethel Boys next Thursday.
Awesome.
Yes, it's going to be great. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel. That way you get the notifications when the video comes on YouTube. Okay. So for the Hammer Podcast, I'm Jason. You take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we'll see you in the next podcast. All right. You take it easy.